Offering some much-needed respite from a blistering heat wave, heavy showers blanketed northern India over the weekend. But with mercury levels expected to remain high in other areas, the soaring heat has highlighted how millions in the world's most populous nation are among the most vulnerable to the effects of climate crisis. Our next report gets you more details on the emerging climate phenomenon, El Nino, and how it is affecting regions across the globe. Take a look.
The weekend downpour in Uttar Pradesh was a welcome change for the northern state of 220 million people after temperatures in some areas soared to 47 degrees Celsius. Last week, hundreds flocked to hospitals complaining of heat-related issues. According to the Indian Weather Department, the rain in Uttar Pradesh is likely to continue this week, bringing cooler temperatures to the region. But in the neighbouring state of Bihar, unrelenting heat has extended into its second week, forcing schools to shut until Wednesday. At least 44 people have died from heat-related illnesses across the state in recent week. But the number could be much higher as the authorities struggle to accurately assess how many people have actually died from heat stroke. The incessant heat is testing India's ability to adapt to changing climate. The experts say that the climate crisis is only going to cause more frequent and longer heat waves in the future.
The cooler is not working properly despite a heat wave. This heat stroke is all about heat, and there is no respite from the heat for the patient even inside the hospital.
However, India is not the only country in the world to experience such sweltering heat in recent weeks. The temperatures in northeast China are expected to remain high as well in the coming few days, with mercury levels rising above 40 degrees Celsius in certain cities, that is. In Pakistan's capital Islamabad, temperatures soared to 39 degrees Celsius. Last week, before weekend rain brought some relief to the region, studies warned that the impact of extreme heat could be devastating. Here's how El Nino is affecting global heating in 2023. The oceans absorb more than 90% of the heat trapped by greenhouse gases that are released by the fossil fuel burning and other human activities. However, during an El Nino, some of this heat is released to the atmosphere because warm water is spread right across the Pacific, smothering cooler waters. This can then add up to 0.2 degrees Celsius to annual global surface temperatures. The El Nino cycle then switches the position of warm ocean waters and brings increased heat waves, droughts, wildfires, and floods to different regions. But how does this emerging climate phenomenon affect regions across the world? The places closest to the Pacific are most strongly affected. In Peru and Ecuador, El Nino brings heavy rains and flooding. In the Amazon, the weather gets hotter and drier during an El Nino, meaning less growth and greater risk of fires in a forest already approaching a tipping point. Heat and drought also increase in Colombia and Central America. On the other side of the Pacific, Australia can be hit hard by the higher temperatures brought in by El Nino. It raises the risk of heat waves, drought and bushfires in the east of the country, and also increases the chances of mass coral bleaching at the Great Barrier Reef. Drought risk also increases in Indonesia. The latest big El Nino from 2014 to 2016 fueled huge forest fires, which sent a smoke plume halfway around the world. El Nino shifts the position of the high-altitude jet stream wind. As a result, the southern U.S. gets wetter weather and increased flood risks, while the northern U.S. and Canada get warmer and drier. The situation is very similar in China, wetter in the south and hotter and drier in the north. El Nino also has an impact on hurricanes and typhoons, usually affecting the Caribbean as well as the U.S., India, Bangladesh, Japan and Korea. These storms are powered by the ocean heat and record high sea temperatures, also fueling tropical storms in the North Atlantic. Europe is less affected, but in winter, El Nino can shift the jet stream and bring more rain to the south of the continent and drier, colder conditions in the north. However, one thing seems certain. Rising global temperatures have been boosting El Nino for years and has brought worst extreme weather for multiple regions across the planet.
And for more on this, our correspondent Gurshin Galen has sent us this report from New Delhi. Let's listen in.
The planet is being hit with a double whammy of global heating in 2023. On top of the inexorable rise in global temperatures caused by greenhouse gas emissions is an emerging El Nino. This sporadic event is the biggest natural influence on year-to-year weather and adds a further spurt of warmth to an already overheating world. The result is supercharged extreme weather hitting lives and livelihoods across the world. The last major El Nino from 2014 to the year 2016 led to each of those years successively breaking the global temperature record. And 2016 still remains the hottest year ever recorded. However, El Nino has now begun, and recent months have already been driving new temperature records, with record heat waves on land from Puerto Rico to China and record heat waves in the seas around the UK. As for India, and with the monsoon well underway, the prediction of El Nino effect this year has raised the concerns about the possible impact on the Indian economy. In the past, the effect has also led to below average monsoons in India. However, this year, the Indian Meteorological Department predicts the monsoon will be normal at 96%. But SkyMet has predicted the below normal monsoon at 94% of LPA. And as the Indian monsoon progresses, the full impact of the El Nino effect will become clear in the coming months. With camera person Joy, I'm Gurshin Galen for WION World is One.
Now for more on this, Erik Solheim, who is the former Minister of International Development, Norway, and former UN Environment Executive Director and Under Secretary General of the United Nations, joins us live from France. So thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast.
It's my pleasure.
So to begin with, just to understand this better, what can you tell us about the El Nino effect and how it is contributing to weather patterns across the globe?
El Nino starts in the Pacific outside the coast of Latin America. It's named El Nino, meaning the little boy, meaning Jesus Christ, by the fishermen who observed these back in the 1600s. But it's when temperature is rising in Pacific is enormous. It has major impact on weather all over the globe. And we now see both American and Indian weather authorities saying that there's a 70% chance that you will have an intensified El Nino phenomenon in South Asia, meaning India, in this year. We have already seen the effects which showed us. I mean, China in Beijing, they had the highest temperature on record in the last couple of weeks. So the effects are there for all to be seen. But of course, we need to prepare for warmer weather and prepare for potential negative impact on agriculture.
Right, sir. Also, I was just coming to this, what can you tell us about the impact of the current heat wave that seems to have gripped Asia?
I mean, we have all seen extreme temperature, like in Uttar Pradesh, as was mentioned here, where there even have been the suspicion that this has led to increased deaths in the state. So obviously, local authorities, state authorities need to prepare, help people in extreme weather, extreme heat, like opening air-conditioned building for people to take some rest there, make sure that water is available so people can cool down. There are a lot of efforts that local authorities can do to help people to overcome heat. But of course, the more serious potential effect is on agriculture. El Nino tends to lead to both droughts and flooding in different parts of the world. What may happen in India this year is that there is less rain, meaning in all likelihood less output from the agriculture. So states, of course, need to prepare for that. For the good news is, of course, that we are much better prepared than in the past. In the past, El Nino sometimes led to famines and hunger. That for sure will not happen in India this year because the central government and the states are better prepared. But you need to stock grain to make sure that there are sufficient amount to help people if the worst is to happen.
Right, sir. And just for better understanding here, rising global temperatures, as we'd mentioned earlier as well, have been boosting El Nino for years. What can be done to keep such weather events in check and also to maybe minimize the impact of climate change?
El Nino is a natural phenomenon that happens every 2 to 7 years, and there's nothing, it's not within human ability to do anything with it. That will happen. But we believe that El Nino is exacerbated by global warming. So if we can do more to reduce global heating, global warming, the effects of El Nino will be less severe. And of course, added to stopping all the emissions leading to climate change, we need to prepare for the effects of El Nino to protect people, particularly protect the vulnerable, all those, say, in India who do not have access to air conditioning. They need to be protected if the heat is extreme. And of course, to make all farmers overcome if there is to be less output from the agriculture due to drought.
All right. Well, Mr. Eriksson, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast with your insights on this.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.